Hey everyone, it's Dr. Zora here and welcome to SkillCapped's guide to playing Breach in Valorant. We have looked at some of the top pros currently playing Breach to provide you with the best Breach guide that you won't find anywhere else. By the end of this guide, you'll have learned tips and tricks on Breach's abilities, the best positions to use each ability, tactics to open up or retake sites for your team, and so much more. All this information will be backed up by demonstrations to ensure you understand each tip and trick provided. But before we get into that, we're excited to announce our brand new hyper improved platform specifically designed to help you improve fast. At SkillCapped.com, you'll finally learn how to level up your aim, different techniques to win gunfights, and so much more. We have professional courses on every single agent, map, and mechanic in Valorant. This is backed up by the top pros, players, and coaches to make sure you are getting the most up-to-date and accurate information possible. In fact, we're so confident that you'll improve using our system that we offer a rank improvement guarantee. Check it out yourself in the link below. Simply put in what rank you're currently at and find out what rank you're guaranteed by using our system. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your true potential and get the rank you've always wanted at SkillCapped.com, link in the description below. Alright, enough with the hype, let's jump right into the video. First off, we need to talk about Breach's role on the team, which greatly impacts the way you want to play this agent. Breach is an initiator, meaning his job is to get information for his team and then utilize his abilities to assist his team in pushing through a site. All his abilities are incredibly helpful to accomplish this, as you'll notice throughout this video. Breach's abilities are also fantastic for defending a site and stalling an attacker push as well. So keep these two aspects in mind whenever you're trying to play Breach. First up is Breach's ability, Fault Line. This is a move that you can activate stunning players that are in front of its zone. You can charge this ability by holding left click to increase the zone and distance that Fault Line will cover. When stunned, players will have decreased movement speed, their firing rate will be slowed, and their vision will be obscured. When using Fault Line though, there's a bit of delay once the ability has been used for it to actually activate, and there is an animation on the ground for other players to identify where it's going to trigger. This heads up prior to activating can allow players to dodge the ability. So stunning players with this ability can be hard, but can be done if you position it in common spots that enemies may be at, and if they are there, this will give them less time to react, and then Fault Line has the potential to hit them. Because of this delay though, there are many scenarios where Fault Line is used more to force players to move rather than actually stunning enemies and then pushing them for kills. The main purpose of this ability on the attacker side is to cover a choke point that you're about to push through. For example, when you're trying to push A short, your team may throw smokes to cover the right side of the map. From there, you're going to need to check U-Haul, so this situation would be a great time to utilize Fault Line to get a potential stun on anyone playing there, or to push a player out of that position. This then allows your team to push onto A for free and set up the plant. This ability is also best used with backup from your teammate. In order to cover the most area with Breach, you need a charge up which can expose you to enemies if you're pushed too far. This is especially true as there is also a delay before you can take out your weapon and shoot after using this ability. So if you're too close by, someone may immediately push you once they see the ability come out and grab an easy frag onto you. Therefore, it's safest to be further back to set up the Fault Line and then have your teammates go in with the ability. Do note that Fault Line will stun any players in front of its zone. This includes your teammates, so make sure that your friendlies are not nearby or that you call out when you're going to use Fault Line so they know to get out of the way. To give you a couple ideas of where Fault Line would be useful, if you're playing Heaven on Split as a defender and hear enemies pushing through Mail, you can use your Fault Line to get a large area of Mail and Mid to stun them or force them to take a couple of seconds to back up prior to the push. If you or your teammates hear enemies coming through B Garage, you can charge up your Fault Line to the entrance point to delay them. This one won't be able to stall them for very long, but those extra 2 to 3 seconds could be all you need to get additional rotations onto the site to better defend it when the push actually comes through. Next is one of Breach's most powerful abilities, Flashpoint. This is a flashbang with a bit of a twist. In order to use Flashpoint, you have to fire it through walls and the flash will trigger it at the end point of the wall. This is incredibly useful for flashing an area that you're about to go through or when you suspect an enemy to be at. It does take some time to trigger, but most players won't be able to react in time to avoid this, or if they do, they're forced to still back away and have the difficult decision of whether to push back in or to back up into another position. There aren't any fancy techniques that you can do with Flashpoint, but knowing where and when to use them is what's going to allow Flashpoint to shine to its fullest potential as the strongest flash in the game. On the attacker side, you'll usually want to use Flashpoint in areas you're about to push like we mentioned earlier. For example, if you're about to go for an A hit on split and you've noticed someone playing ramps, you'll want to flash through this wall to force the enemy to back up. You'll then want to take over this position so that if any enemies decide to push again, they'll be met by multiple members of your team. From there, you can throw a second flash in the corner of the wall to the right, which will blind players from practically every choke point. It covers close to A short, up on rafters, and heaven elbow screens, as well as anyone trying to watch A short from an exposed position on the site. After throwing this flash, your team can then safely push forward and kill any blinded players and take over A. When playing Breach on the defender side, you'll want to pay close attention to sound and communication from your team to identify when you may want to flash. For example, if players are about to push through A main like we were showing on the attacker side, they'll usually make a lot of noise. Once you have heard these players, a flash you could do is right through this wall, and if players are going in hard to the site, many players will be likely blinded. This will then give you a chance to grab a kill or two before backing out. You want to make sure to back out afterwards as your location has been exposed, and if there are still multiple enemies in the area, you're likely going to get overwhelmed and killed. Once you've backed out, if enemies decide to continue pushing, you have two fantastic positions you could play. You could first play back site and wait for enemies to begin to push further into the site. Once you've heard that noise, you can then flash through the board to blind the pushing attackers and grab more easy kills. Option 2, if you have the time, is to run back over to elbow and do the same thing. Listen to sound, and once you hear the enemies getting close, you can flash through this wall to blind them again and get quick peeks onto them. This position is more powerful as you have areas that you can still back up from versus the back site where you'll have to flash, get a pick, but you still have a chance of getting swarmed by the enemy team depending on how many players are still alive. This is an example of how to utilize Breach's flashpoint on the A site, but the concept remains the same regardless of what area you're playing. One final note to be aware of with flashpoint though is it does take a long time to take out, plus there is some delay after using the ability that you can shoot. So make sure you don't wait too long or you don't expose yourself too much if you plan to use this ability. Moving on, we have Breach's third ability, Aftershock. This ability is similar to Flashpoint where it is fired through walls. If an enemy is in range of this ability, they will take a ton of damage. If they're directly on it, enemies could even get one-shotted by Aftershock. However, the catch with Aftershock is that it takes a significant amount of time to trigger, and if enemies are in its range, they will get a notification on their screen indicating that if they stay where they are, they will get hit and take damage. Because of this heads up and how long it takes for Aftershock to trigger, many players will be able to run away from the ability and prevent taking damage. So the main point of Aftershock is less so to do damage to players, but more to weed enemies out of their position and thus exposing them to your team's line of sight. So when using Aftershock, pick a position that an enemy may be hiding at and shoot it. For example, some common positions that defenders may play at is close rafters in the back corner of a site. To clear out these positions, you can fire an Aftershock safely through the wall to force that player to make noise, to move away, and thus expose themselves to being killed. Another option is throwing an Aftershock in the back corner of site, which again will force the defender to have to leave their position and expose themselves. On the defender side, you want to use Aftershock to block off small choke points that enemies may be going for. For example, if enemies are trying to take control of male to get to the B site, you can Aftershock right at heaven entrance where you can stall for a couple of seconds for your team to rotate over. Likewise, if the enemy has pushed and taken over male already and are trying to reload before going into heaven, you can then throw an Aftershock in the corner of male to force them to have to move out while reloading, and then you can peek to grab some kills. Similarly, on defense, when you're trying to play retake, you can use Aftershock in those positions that you think enemies are going to be at. Even if they aren't there, this helps decrease the number of locations that enemies may be at, making it easier to play retake. Lastly, we have Breach's ultimate, Rolling Thunder. This is essentially an advanced version of Breach's fault line. You don't need to charge it up, and you have a large cone where Rolling Thunder will slowly begin to cover once activated. If enemies get hit by this ability, they will get knocked up, stunned, and have significantly decreased movement speed, vision, and firing rate. These effects last a very long time, so essentially if you're hit by Rolling Thunder, you're probably going to be dead. Like most ultimates, there will be a voice line expressed to give players a heads up on this ability. Teammates can also get hit by this ultimate, so make sure again that you're aware of the teammates' positions before using it. Another note is that Rolling Thunder comes in waves, so it won't hit the entire area that the cone indicated immediately, and will instead slowly creep its way forward. So once the ability is activated, your team can slowly move their way forward without worrying about getting dazed. Likewise, since it takes time for Rolling Thunder to reach farther areas, plus there is an animation on the ground indicating where Rolling Thunder will hit, enemies have a decent amount of time to move about from the cone and avoid it. But if used appropriately, Breach's Rolling Thunder will be able to get a majority of players that you want to target. The best times to use Rolling Thunder is when you're about to attack a site. Again, Breach's ultimate can cover a lot of real estate. On split, you can cover a large amount of the A site just by ulting from A main, in which your team can then focus on screens and rafters before going into any dazed players. You can also get a large amount of the B site by using Breach's ultimate from heaven. With this ultimate, any players on the site itself will have nowhere to run from, and unless they react quickly with other abilities, they'll likely be easy kills. Likewise, on the defender side, you can use the exact same ultimates we just saw to play retake. Or if you hear a large number of players in a certain choke point and you're in a safe position where the ultimate will hit all of them, you can do so and then push forward to get those kills. To wrap everything up, we're going to put everything together and show how a typical round looks like on the attacker side and defender side when playing Breach. And we're going to start off on the attacker side. On the attacker side, you usually want to be the second or third player going into a site. The reason being is that you have very strong abilities to blind, stun, or force players out of positions, but when using these abilities, there's a big delay on when you can shoot. Because of this, Breach's abilities are actually better used to support your teammates who can peek out quicker than you can. Use your abilities like we mentioned earlier in the video to put enemy players in a bad position in which you can then push them and take over sites. On the defender side, you're mostly going to use your abilities as a reaction to what the enemies do, and this is the key concept to playing Breach well here. If you hear enemies about to go through a choke point, if that choke point is narrow enough and you have a good lineup available, you may want to use your fault line to stun them or delay the push. If you don't have this option available, you may want to use a flash to slow them down and grab yourself some kills before backing away. Lastly, if you have a player that you know is hiding in a certain position during a push or during a retake, Aftershock may be the best option to force them to move and be exposed, in which you can then get a kill. Think about what Breach's abilities do and identify which one is the best option during the situations that you are in, and you'll find yourself having a lot of success on the defender side. And remember, if you want to improve, win more gunfights, and get the rank you've always wanted, then check out SkillCapped.com, link in the description below. Alright, so what is your favorite map to play Breach on? Let us know in the comment section below. And while you're down there, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides just like this one with one goal in mind, helping you become a better player. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next. I'm Dr. Zora, and good luck out there.